Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into a complex legal story. It spans two states, two incredibly brutal murders, and focuses on one suspect.
That's right. We're looking at Quentin Tellis and the death of Jessica Chambers in Mississippi back in 2014 and Ming Chen Mandy Sao in Louisiana in 2015.
And our goal here really is to try and make sense of why these cases, despite seeming connections, are still so unresolved. We're talking mistrials, dismissals, appeals. It's a lot.
Exactly. This dive is all about piecing together what we know from court records, news reports, the investigative timelines. We want to understand the evidence, especially the digital side, and, the legal hurdles that keep blocking a final resolution.
Okay, so let's start in Mississippi, the Jessica Chambers case. It grabbed headlines because, well, the sheer horror of it. December 2014, she's 19, found outside her burning car in Courtland, Mississippi.
Yeah, a tiny town, population maybe 500, and she'd been doused in gasoline, set on fire, died just hours later in the hospital.
Just horrific.
And the details are particularly cruel. The source material notes the flammable liquid wasn't just on her body, it was forced up her nose, down her throat.
Which leads to this immediate sort of confusion at the scene, right? The first responders, they thought they heard her say a name.
Yes, Eric, or maybe Derek. And this, well, it became a major initial problem. Investigators spent crucial early time looking for every local Eric or Derek, ruled them all out.
But could she even speak clearly?
That's the critical question experts raised later. Given the horrific burns to her mouth and throat, how clearly could she really articulate anything? So that initial lead might have been, well, a tragic misinterpretation.
Okay, so that early lead fizzles. The focus then eventually shifts to Quentin Tellis. He knew Jessica.
Yeah, he grew up in Courtland, knew her before he moved to Louisiana sometime in 2015, so there was a connection.
And this is where the digital evidence really comes into play. The prosecution builds its case. How?
Almost entirely on cell phone data, which is fascinating. It showed Tellis and Chambers were together, their phones pinging in the same locations, until about 7:30 p.m. that evening.
7:30 p.m. And she was found on fire just a little later.
About half an hour, yeah. Around 8:10 p.m., a very narrow window of time.
Which the prosecution argued made it pretty unlikely someone else just happened upon her right after she left Tellis.
Exactly. But the core of their argument was motive. And that came from the phones, too.
Deleted texts.
Right. Investigators recovered texts showing Tellis repeatedly asking Jessica for sex, including, apparently, 4 times just that day she kept saying no.
4 times on the day she died. Wow.
So the prosecution's theory was, basically, he got enraged after she rejected him, maybe in his driveway, knocked her unconscious, put her in a car, drove it away, and then set the fire. To destroy evidence, presumably.
Was there any physical evidence tying him to the scene itself?
Yes, and this was key. Her car keys. They weren't in the car, they were found later. Found along a path, actually, between where the car was burning and his sister's house, which was nearby.
And his DNA.
His DNA was on those keys. Now, the defense would argue that just means he touched the keys maybe earlier, but the location of the keys supported the prosecution's narrative. He drives the car there, flees on foot towards his sister's, drops the keys accidentally.
Okay, so you have the timeline, the potential motive from the text, the DNA on the keys found nearby. What about his alibi?
The alibi. It completely crumbled under scrutiny, especially when compared against the cell data and surveillance footage.
He changed his story.
3 times, according to the sources. First, he said he only saw her that morning. When confronted with cell data showing they were together later, he made up a story about going to Taco Bell. Then he claimed a friend picked him up.
But the friend?
Authorities checked the friend's cell data. Turns out the friend was hundreds of miles away in Nashville at a football game. So yeah, the alibi was just gone, completely disproven by technology.
So with all that, the tight timeline, the motive text, the DNA link, the busted alibi, why couldn't the jury convict him? Twice?
Well, 2 mistrials mean hung juries. They were deadlocked, couldn't reach a unanimous decision. And remember, this is all circumstantial evidence. Very strong, yes, but still circumstantial.
Meaning no eyewitness saw him set the fire. No DNA directly linking him to the fire itself.
Exactly. The defense likely hammered on that, argued the DNA on the keys only proved contact, not murder. Maybe someone else entirely attacked her in that 40-minute window after she left Tellis. They just needed to raise reasonable doubt in one juror's mind.
And they succeeded. Twice. So the Mississippi DI hasn't gone for a third trial.
Not so far, no. So for Jessica Chambers, justice is effectively paused. Indefinitely, it seems.
Which brings us south to Louisiana
Uh-huh.
and another victim.
Right. 7 months after Jessica's death, we have the murder of Ming Shen Mandy Shao in Monroe, Louisiana. She was 34.
And Tellis is connected here, too. He'd moved there by then.
Yes, he had moved to Louisiana. And again, cell phone records, text messages, they linked him to Mandy Shao. He knew her. Apparently they were involved somehow, maybe romantically for a few weeks. He was allegedly the last person to text her.
And this crime was also incredibly violent.
Extremely. Tortured, stabbed more than 30 times in her apartment. A very different method than the Chambers case, but certainly brutal.
Now, before he was even charged with Sal's murder, he was already in trouble related to her death, wasn't he?
That's a really important point, yes. He actually admitted to using her debit card after she died. Pleaded guilty to unauthorized use.
And got sentenced for that.
10 years in Louisiana for that felony charge. He always denied killing her, but admitted to using the card. So he was already incarcerated in Louisiana when they finally indicted him for her murder in 2019.
Okay, so he's indicted for murder in 2019 while already serving time for the debit card fraud. But the murder case didn't go smoothly either.
Not at all. It hit this massive legal roadblock in November 2022.
What happened?
A district court judge in Louisiana just dismissed the murder charge completely.
Dismissed. On what grounds?
Violation of his right to a speedy trial. The judge basically ruled that the prosecution took too long, let too many years pass between the indictment in 2019 and actually getting the case to trial. It's a constitutional right.
Wow. So the case was just thrown out.
It looked that way. A huge setback for the prosecution, obviously. But
Yeah.
they appealed that decision, and they won the appeal. Just this year, in 2024, a Louisiana appellate court overturned the judge's dismissal.
So the murder charge is back on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The higher court said the trial judge made a legal mistake in dismissing it. They ordered the murder charge reinstated and told the court to set a new trial date. So it's active again, legally speaking.
It's quite the legal roller coaster. Dismissed, then reinstated. Which sort of brings us to the recent news about the case file.
Right. The whole Louisiana case had been under a gag order for years. The judge put it in place to prevent media coverage potentially influencing a jury.
Even though Tellis eventually waived his right to a jury trial anyway.
Correct. But the gag order remained. Then the Clarion Ledger, the newspaper, pushed to get the file unsealed, arguing, public interest.
And do they have to fight for it?
Surprisingly, no. The judge asked if Tellis or the DA's office objected to unsealing it. Neither did. So the judge ordered it unsealed immediately.
And what did the unsealed files reveal? Any bombshells?
Actually, no, which is sort of the story itself. The files basically showed nothing new had happened legally for a long time. It confirmed the case had just been sitting there in limbo while the speedy trial issue was argued and appealed.
So the unsealing confirmed the delay, essentially.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But following that order, the DA's office did schedule a status hearing for June 16th. So it seems like things are finally starting to move again on the reinstated Louisiana murder charge.
Okay, let's clarify where Tellis is right now. He's not in Louisiana, is he? Despite the Louisiana charge.
No, he's currently in prison back in Mississippi. He's serving time for a completely separate burglary conviction there.
And he got extra time in that sentence.
Yeah, he was sentenced as a habitual offender because he had previous felony convictions, burglary, felony fleeing. That enhances the sentence significantly.
So he has a release date based on that Mississippi sentence.
He does, and this is the crucial deadline hanging over everything. He's currently scheduled to be released from Mississippi prison in 2027.
2027. Okay. That really puts the pressure on both states, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If Louisiana doesn't get the Shao murder trial completed, or if it gets delayed past that 2027 date, he could potentially walk free unless there's some mechanism to transfer him directly to face the Louisiana charges upon release.
So for thinking about what this all means, this whole saga, it's really a stark illustration of the justice system's challenges, right? You have powerful digital evidence in one case.
Undeniable data points, yeah. Cell locations, deleted texts showing motive.
But it wasn't enough to overcome reasonable doubt for two separate juries. That human element of the jury is still paramount.
It absolutely is. It shows that even in our technological age, that digital footprint, however clear it seems, doesn't automatically translate to a conviction if the defense can poke holes or if there isn't that direct, physical smoking gun evidence connecting the suspect to the final act.
And then in the other case, You see how legal procedures, like the speedy trial right, can almost derail the entire process,
Right.
regardless of the evidence.
Right. The Sow case got tangled in years of procedural arguments, completely separate from the actual evidence of guilt or innocence. It highlights how complex navigating the legal system can be.
So the big question looming is that 2027 release date.
It's the ticking clock. Louisiana now has this reinstated murder charge, but they need to move on it before Tellis finishes his current Mississippi sentence.
And what about Mississippi? Do they just let the Chambers case lie dormant?
That's the other part of the equation. Will the looming 2027 release date perhaps pressure the Mississippi DA to reconsider a third trial for Jessica Chambers, knowing that if they don't, and if Louisiana falters, he could be released despite being the sole suspect in two horrific murders?
So here's a final thought we want to leave you with. Even with the Louisiana murder charge back on the table and the file unsealed, Quentin Tellis is set to be released in 2027 based on that unrelated burglary sentence. What does it mean for justice in these two states if Louisiana can't bring its case to a conclusion before then, and if Mississippi continues to hold back on a third trial?
The window for accountability seems to be closing fast. It's a really precarious situation.
It certainly is. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these complex cases and the sources surrounding them. We'll see you next time.